very fresh and satisfying entry for this particular orchestration challenge, AJ. I really enjoyed that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to fix, but it still has this really nice, exuberant kind of quality to it. You are trying to sort of change things around, and some of it's aesthetic, some of it is just kind of playing with the harmony in different ways. So, not all of it worked for me, but we'll talk about some of those things. So, first let's cover a couple of just a couple of basic things. This is kind of strange right here. The stem looks like you might have been editing this, or maybe I was editing it and this stem got pulled down. Okay, it's not really all that worth noticing. Okay, so arco does not need to be capitalized, right? So it's just nice and clean, just a lowercase a, and you don't even need the period at the end, right? Because that's just for abbreviations, right? So like the pizzicato needs a dot at the end because it is short, Pitz is short for pizzicato, so you need the dot to kind of tell us this is an incomplete word. But with arco, we don't need the period. Now there are some editions where they put a period after everything. Some German editions, like you'll see that in some Mahler scores and so on. But just the standard is to just have the word arco, no period. Okay. All right. So now let's kind of jump back to the beginning here, and I'm going to use the evaluation criteria to just really make sure that I'm playing fair. I'm giving everybody the same kinds of feedback and so on. So we start off here, with the whole question of, does this set the mood effectively? I mean, I would say so. I mean, you have this brighter color by stacking the flutes on top, and also with the clarinets and so on. So it has a kind of a different. It doesn't have that solemn quality. It has a kind of a brighter kind of a feeling, which ties into the a lot of this brighter color in here. Now, I did have a problem here in that you sort of fell into a trap here, which is that Beethoven only gives an eighth note value to this F, right? But if you think about how the pedal is holding everything down and carrying it forward, you shouldn't be letting go of this F. And not only that, you shouldn't be letting go of this A either. If there's any way of extending the value of this A after it's been played by whatever melody instrument, you could just go F-A here and then hold the A, right? And then you have that big, beautiful, bright F major chord. And then compare that to the way that yours ended up sounding. Your mock-up, there was just suddenly this big hole in there. I mean, you can just feel these rests here just sort of, what is their purpose? What are the purpose of these rests? It would be better for you just to make this let me bring in the keypad so you can see what I'm doing. It would be better for you just to, let's say, let's do something like this. Let's see, and then leave the fermata on there. It'd be better for you to have something like this, or even just, hang on. That was my wedding ring clanking against something. You just put the fermata here on the downbeat, right? So you could do that as well, right? So I think that is just way stronger than this idea here, just like kind of letting go of the F. All right. So, all that aside, though, put this down here where I can grab it again. There's a nice quality here. This lower flute writing is not critical. It's not a big deal. You've got some doubling in here with your first clarinet and so on. So and then you got the overtones from the flutes below from the violin below helping out the first flute and so on. So it's not perfectly balanced and everything, but it still works pretty well. Try not to let Sibelius push your turn mark too early or too far back, right? Because this kind of doesn't mean anything. You really need the turn either on the note head or just after it. And Sibelius's playback will actually play it differently depending on where you put it, right? So if you put it after the note, you should get it da 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 dum. Whereas if you put it right over the note head, like you had it before, it goes da 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 dum, rather than actually playing your primary note first. But I really like the string scoring in here. I thought this was really nice, and I like the slurs too. You know, you're going down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. That all works really well. This is kind of strange here. Let's just delete this. All right, I think that's what you mean. And then here, like all of this, I mean, yeah, you can just stick a slur over it and forget it. But I mean, do you really intend to like slur across repeated notes so much? It kind of makes the slur just the sort of legato thing, which is just a piano thing, which is just kind of an excuse to not work out the articulation of the breath and the tonguing and everything else, right? So, you know, wouldn't it be better to go ta, 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 or ta, 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 ta? Do you know what I mean? It's like really like work out what would be logical rather than just slapping a big legato mark over it. Because, I mean, just too many repeated notes. I mean, you can sort of say, okay, well, yeah, he just wants you to play everything legato, including repeated notes. But I just think it's a little sloppy. Like, you know, you are starting off as an orchestrator, right? You're not a pro yet. So you should be thinking about all the things you can do to make the part more playable, right? Like always, as much as you can. And then you can, like, loosen up a little bit. This is a little strange here. So this divisi is attached to this. All right. Oops. All right. So it should always be over the top. This is technique text, right? Not expression text. And you only need, you know, and then here unisone. All right. This should go above as well. And this is all you need. Sorry. All right, that's all you need. Unis. All right. Yeah. So now let's you were pretty careful about the bowing here. Let's look at the bowing going ahead, and then we'll talk about the evaluation criteria. We'll apply them to here. So here you're going down, up, down, up, down. Up, down. I think you sort of got a little off track here. So, all right, so this is just just throwing this really, really, really long slur onto all of these notes in the strings is as much as just giving up, right? Remember, you know, this was one of my evaluation criteria, right, AJ? You probably are remembering now and thinking, oh no, I forgot to do that, right? So, like, just dropping the like a legato slur for a piano phrase onto strings, right? Is, you know, that's not enough, right? So you have to think, like, what would the strings logically be doing here? They would probably want to slur this together on an up bow, right? So you'd go up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Or you could even go down, up, if you wanted to. But I think down is really nice because then you get the long down bow going into the diminuendo, which always works really, really well together. All right, and then you got this, you know, chunk, 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 chunk. I think this is a little too acrobatic. Like doing this entire thing under one bow. Duh. You know, I mean, just imagine like think about the elbow of the cellist as they're hopping up. You're having them smoothly go up from this F down here, which will be on the C string, right? There's the only string that can play it. And they may actually want to finger these notes here, like they might want to play it like in a lower position on, say, maybe the second string, right? So they have to sort of skip across here, and I mean, it's just a little messy, right? So just trying to avoid big acrobatic slurs like this. Like this forces them to play this. Like if you really want this slur to be absolutely clean, it forces the cellist to play this on the third string rather than the second string, where it might be a little bit more opportune, right? Then, of course, like cellists out there will say, "Oh, I don't have any problem with that. That's real easy." But but really, wouldn't it be easier if this were just one bow and then this were the next bow? So down, up, right? And then here, this is weird. You've got this weird smile on here. All right, so just try not to have strange. Okay, so this is marked as a tie. Okay, so just if you get anything that is weird like that, just correct it. Okay. That works a lot better. All right. So this needs to be cleaned up, and this could have just one long slur over it. But I'm kind of wondering why you're not starting on the pickup note, right? Where's the G, right? Why aren't we giving this to this? Because if we go back to the evaluation criteria now, and we say melody starting with elegance, well, that's a nice elegant way to start. This, these two bars here. And then the next two bars, right, the question is natural transition to octaves. Well, I mean, it is natural except for the fact that you left off the pickup note here, right? So how natural can that be if we don't have, if the doubling suddenly thickens on this note? Now, having said that, I don't know how many flutes you want to be playing at once, right? Because you're not telling me a duet, right? Right? That would mean two instruments are sharing the same line. Now, if you don't put that on here, like the copyist doesn't know what you mean, and the conductor doesn't know what you mean, and the score reader doesn't know what you mean. If you just mean this to be a single instrument, like the first player perhaps, then you write number 1. If you want it to be the second, you write number 2, right? And it's the same thing here. Like the bassoons, you need to tell us how many. The oboes, we're not seeing how many. The horn, like here you say horn in F, right? Singular, horn. And then here you do two-part writing, right? So obviously this is intended to be horns in F, right? So so just watch out for little details like that, all right? Those are things that you're going to want to know. I mean, it's not a big polish on your score to take care of those little details. All right, so I would say, like, if you were to fix this, and to fix this, the up and down slurs here, then I would say that the transition to octaves was pretty good. And also just like, is there a natural flow here? I just think, once again, I think this is too acrobatic, just for the music that is intended. Now I've seen cellists do like all kinds of wild, huge, long bowings, but this, the character of this music is calm, right? It's not meant to just arch all over the place. It's possible, it's just not effortless, right? And then when the effort makes itself into the score, or works itself into the listener's experience, then it just kind of is, it doesn't quite fit the vibe, right? Expanding without clogging up, you don't actually really expand that much here. So you don't give this this little surge here in dynamics to the other parts, right? So you don't clog up, but you don't expand. So I mean, you didn't have to, so it's all fine. So this is nice. You have to jump ahead to this. Does it contrast with the theme? Yeah, because you have exposed clarinets after this passage with mostly strings, a little bit of flute thickening. And this is kind of fun, the ba-ba-ba-ba-bum. This is all perfectly possible. There's like nothing wrong with it. And then I think that do you really want to take away the ta from the downbeat here? Do you really want ta, or do you want ta ta, or maybe even ta ta ta, right? Ta ta ta. So just like give some definition to the on beat here, right? The ta ta ta. So, but you can just slop it all together if you want to. Ta. So that's fine too. And then a nice contrast here. not just the register, but the also the between legato and staccato. I'm not so hugely turned on by the way you change the context of the harmony here in the pizzicato and the staccato winds. It was just a little too. It's a little too outside for me. It's something where I feel like you really go away from where Beethoven wants the harmony to go. And I've seen some people experiment around. I think when people build on Beethoven's harmony, right, and sort of make it more complex without changing the actual shape of it, then I think it works really, really well. But I think when people really deviate, it's a lot harder. It's a much bigger risk. So if you're not that experienced with harmony, everything from more complex romantic, late romantic harmonies, say that you might get from say late Brahms and Mahler and so on, Bruckner, early Schoenberg before he went totally chromatic, right? He didn't like the word atonal before he went totally chromatic or pantonic. Anyhow, yeah, so just really watch out for changing the harmony around. And then right in here, our concern is there emphatic color of line? Do you maintain strength or do you drop back down? Does that make sense? Does the harmonic density set up and so on? So here you chose to have a nice emphatic color of line with really strong registers here. I'm assuming that you intend this to be a duet, right? So 2 clarinets and 2 flutes stacked, or maybe just one of each, I don't know. But anyhow, pushing towards here. And then here you would have to say piano subito, right? Because crescendo, piano crescendo to piano, that doesn't make any sense, right? So with Beethoven, Beethoven had terrace dynamics because that was part of the sensibility of the classical period, which was coming out of the Baroque period, where there was very little dynamic control. You would just go, with keyboard instruments, you would just jump up and down different dynamics all the time, right? And it would you'd pull out a stop on an organ or a harpsichord, so you would get more or less layering. Okay, so and a lot of that was still in Beethoven's sensibilities, even though he was writing for the forte piano. So, and in a lot of ways, the forte piano had less dynamic control as well, right? So, you had to really jump the dynamics sometimes instead of having the subtleties of, of hairpins and so on, which you see more in later works. All right, well, not to get too sidetracked, but here you really, you cannot take for granted. That's sort of when somebody sees this, it's sort of well, I was P, right? I was piano. Now you want me to crescendo to piano. Then they may get the entire idea that this is supposed to be pianissimo, right? So you really have to clarify these things, right? So crescendo and then piano subito, and sometimes it's even great to have a destination dynamic to the hairpin. You're getting all the way up to what do you want? Mezzo forte, right? Maybe on the 4th beat, and then piano subito. And if you're going to do a crescendo here and there, well, why not a crescendo for the timpani, right? Why not add the crescendo to these lower notes? So here, I think that since you have got timpani, right, which at least 2 kettles, right? I think you could have 2 different pitches here rather than just F both times, right? You're kind of just sort of stuck on F here. I mean, this could have been a timpani roll on C, right? Even though we were coming up to a B flat here and then C 7th. Now, here is the big problem that I see. This just seems really meandering. You're taking this B flat, you're sticking it up 2 octaves, and then you're having to go C, B flat. It just sort of seems what am I doing up here? The pitch here should just be a C, right? It just should be C all the way across. Something, or maybe a G, something that underlines the sense of the oncoming big C 7th chord, right? So if you're going to put C here, right, then you have more choices of what to do right in here. But I would not actually put a G here. Da 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 dum ba dum, right? Da 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 dum. So this is like the 4 chord, right? Not the 5 chord. So you could this could be an F, or it could just be you could just be sitting on the C if you wanted to. But yeah, but I think that this is just kind of strange. Like if this is B flat and that's C, and you just have a lot of conflicts here. All right, so you need to trust Beethoven's harmony, right? So I saw this recently in another score that I evaluated. Just like there had been just so many changes to the harmony that I mean the scoring could have just stayed where it was, right? Here you could have just gone B flat C, just like Beethoven did, right? B flat C. What's wrong with that? And then here, whatever pitch you picked here could have been more relevant to harmonization rather than just going B flat C B flat, because the way that this is just completely isolated in there, it just really it just seemed kind of unpleasant and distracting from the line that was going around it, right? So maybe better for the the density, the harmonic density building up here to really be more like inner notes, right? Or lower notes rather than between the octaves. Or that just needs to be handled a little bit differently. But anyways, I liked all this stuff here at the end. This was really fun. Yeah. So here you're writing in both pitches. So here this is essentially a duet, right? But it's just really kind of unclear if you don't mark the entrances, right? Like nobody is going to assume that this is first. This is the first player. You have to tell the conductor on the score. You have to tell the copyist which part they're going to score out for you, right? If you are having somebody else do your copy work. And not all these really need to be, this could just be first voice, right? Right. It's just simpler. It's easier to read. Same thing here. Right? Couldn't this just be sorry. Right? It's just, isn't that nicer, easier to read? Right? Now here, of course, if you want these repeated notes below and then the slur above, then this makes sense, right? So, anyway, but yeah, I mean, I could probably pick this apart a little bit, but I don't want to. I think it's actually kind of cool. Yeah, and much more sensible layout here in the harmony, because you really are following Beethoven's harmonic structure and building on it, right? So I just feel like you could have done that here and perhaps right in here and a little bit, right? So just right in here, like extending this F and so on. Just think about like what it sounds like for the piano to play, right? But anyways, all that aside, AJ, it was the character of the score was really just really fresh and exciting, and bringing in a new voice into the orchestration challenge is always great. So I really hope that you will enter the challenge next year, because it's going to be completely different, right? The period of the music and the life period of the composer. And this is a piece that is really in the style of Beethoven, especially in the so-called middle period, or maybe the late early period. And it's just a really lovely piece, and where you listen to it and you say, oh, that's Beethoven. But the piece that I'm going to program for the next orchestration challenge is not going to sound like the composer that people are used to. Oh yeah, one last little thing is watch out for this. This is a trap that Sibelius does, right? Just really make sure that you don't have bar rests and a pickup bar, all right? Because that can just throw everybody off in their counting. You might have like the horn player counting to 4 on this, and then they start counting, and then they just get completely lost, and they miss their entrance here by 3 beats, right? If they really are being literal with their counting. Of course, they would actually know that there was something wrong if they were really paying attention and just thinking, oh, well, that's the downbeat. And so, and then they might think, oh, no, yeah, that's right. This has happened to me before when people sent me scores that were made in notation applications, right? So then we get a reputation for not being careful, right? So, but I really wish that Sibelius wouldn't allow, like on a pickup bar, wouldn't allow you to use a bar rest. But it doesn't know any better, so I mean, I can't really blame it. It's just the language, the way the language was set up for the application. Anyways, really cool score, and I will just leave it there. With many thanks to you for supporting the channel and for being a part of this the challenge this year, and doing such so much work on your score and getting it ready and everything else. I really appreciate it. So everybody out there watching, you know what to do. Give AJ some comments below, and AJ, you should go to all of your fellow Minim supporters, like everybody at the same level as you, and just give them comments too, right? And that way we'll really have a strong start in terms of feedback and viewership, and everybody really kind of joining together, because it's not just what I think, right? It's what everybody in the community has to offer each other. Right? It's really the most important thing to me. All right, I'll see everybody soon with the next evaluation coming from Emily this time. I really can't wait to share it with you.